Hey comrades, what's up? Hope everyone's doing great. We're here to talk about Deja Vu. This is a duology of games that I never played before. I played Shadowgate, which is made by the same company, and I played Shadowgate a couple different times. I played it on the Nintendo Entertainment System back in the day. I also played some sort of remake for it, which was much prettier. I don't know where I played that. Like Nintendo 64 maybe? Maybe. I don't remember. Anyway, I enjoyed that game. I enjoy these kind of like first-person point-and-click adventure games. There's a few others that they made on like... There's like one on the Shannara series, not the same company. So the company that made Shadowgate also made the Deja Vu games. And the Deja Vu games are like, they're like noir PI kind of games. And so the way they work, and I played the Game Boy Color version, which combines Deja Vu 1 and 2 into like one game essentially. Like you beat Deja Vu 1 and it goes in immediately you get like some text and then you just start playing Deja Vu 2 because they take place like 2 days after number 2 takes place like 2 days after the first one ends, right? Which is great. And that would be my recommended way to play it. This game came out originally like the Amiga or something. Like it came out a long time ago. And then the original Deja Vu that I ran into was like in a Nintendo Power. So I don't think it came on the NES though. I think it actually came out on the Game Boy. It might have come out on the NES. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So you have like this menu, and you'll see if you're watching the video where you have like these options at the bottom. The options are like move, open, close, use, pick up, look at, or like examine. And the Game Boy Color version has like a punch people thing. And when I was looking at one of these guides to get through this game, it seemed like only the Game Boy Color version has an option to like punch people. In other versions, you just use people and it will punch them. So that became like a sort point issue because there's a couple things I was trying to do while following a fucking guide in Deja Vu 2, which was like, it was like, do this. And I was like, that is not working. And so I had to go to Gemini and have a conversation with it to kind of figure out like what other options there were. And both times it was like, oh, like the guide's like, oh, use this knife to like pry off these boards. And it was like, that doesn't work. And I'd like walk around looking for like a different knife and like all this stuff. And finally I was like, Gemini, what do I need to do here? And it's like, have you tried punching the boards? And I'm like, I laughed out loud while playing this game. I was like, the fuck would I do that for? I was like, whatever, YOLO, let's see. And I punched the boards and it worked. And I was like, oh my God, I would have never figured that out in a billion years. Like, what the fuck? And then it was something else. It was the same thing. It was like, oh yeah, you got to find the bottle with like the cobwebs, no cobweb, that's clean. And then you got to like do something to it. And then it was like, okay, so I did that. I tried, and I was like, okay, this was after the board thing. So I'm doing all this stuff. And again, it was like, I just punched it and then it worked. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what the fuck? All right. That's a game we're playing. And then in the Game Boy Color version, you also, it's like more cinematic, it seems, because there would be like moments where it's like, I would go through the walkthrough, the guide, and I looked at a couple different guides, and they would all agree that like, this is all you got to do, like to beat the game essentially was the big one. And I'm just like, that's not working. Like I keep getting caught. And so I kept doing stuff. And then finally I watched a YouTube video and this guy's like clicking on murals. And when he clicked on these murals, the main character had like an insight into like what was going on. And it was like, oh, you had to do that insight. And that comes up, right? And that came up in the first game too, in both games. Like every now and then, if you did something, the character would like self-reflect, and like the nowhere kind of thing is like, oh, I was thinking about this, and it's like blah 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 blah, and that makes sense, and like do this. And I feel like that was like stuff was locked behind that, which made it kind of frustrating because the guide I was using was clearly not for the Game Boy Color version. Anyway, that all aside, the game's fantastic. It's very, it's like the pixelated art in each scene is great. So they have like, sometimes they have a little bit of animations. They do like the whole Sacco thing when you punch like goons and stuff. The first game had a lot more kind of like random events. Like, you can get mugged on the street and you gotta like figure that out. And then like, so it was, it's pretty good for like an old like game from like the 1980s. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then the story's kind of interesting too. They both involve, like, it's like noir stuff, right? It's like tricks and schemes, and like you got to collect evidence, and you got to like dispose of evidence, and like, I would highly not recommend playing this without a guide. Because that is like, there are so many options. That's like when I beat it, Shadowgate, I think I ended up using like a Nintendo Power Guide or something, because I was like, me and my brothers would like sit around and play that game like all the fucking time and be like, what the fuck are we supposed to do here? And it was like we go to every room, you try everything, and like we like powered through, like I think we powered through almost the whole game. We might have beat it without a guide, to be honest, but it took like a year of like all four of us like taking turns just like screwing around with this thing, trying to figure out like what pixel you're supposed to click on in the screen. So infuriating. So if you just play with a guide, then you can, you enjoy it a lot more, I gotta say. Unless you're really into like hating yourself and punishing your time. But either way, let's get to the story. All right. Where are we at? Okay, so we start off the game, and the game starts off, we're in a bathroom stall. There's blood everywhere, but it doesn't seem to be our blood. And then also we have this like pounding headache, and every now and then we'll just like stop and they'll get like a little cutscene, quote unquote, where it's like, oh, my head. And the whole thing's like very yikes coded, if you will. So there's a coat hanging on the backside of the bathroom door with a bunch of stuff in it. There's letters that talk about a JS, about a few different things. We find a 38, nice. And then we get a card to some sort of penthouse. We then step out of the bathroom and look at ourselves in the mirror, and we get like one of those like little like, oh, my head, blah, blah, blah. Like, I look familiar, but I don't know who I am. Oh, no. We then move out of the bathroom and find that we're in some sort of bar, Joe's bar. So JS, right, that's probably Joe. We then head upstairs after grabbing some seltzer, which I don't think I ever used that, but I picked it up off the bar. There's lots of stuff you can just like pick up that is unnecessary, but whatever. You never know in these fucking games. So let's see, we head upstairs. Oh yeah, we're looking at like these like promotional posters for like boxers and stuff, and one of them looks very familiar because it's us. And so we like have another like headache and almost black out again. And then let's see. And then so the door, let's see. Okay, so then we this whole time we're like picking up keys and opening drawers and stuff. So we head in there. And dun dun dun. Oh no, we head in there, and there's like it's like a secretary's office, and there's like an inner office, and then we find this bill for a bunch of drugs that were bought, which that's very important, right? Because obviously we were drugged. So let's see, and then we also find an address, and these addresses are very important to find because the addresses allow you to use a cab to take you places in the game that you need to get to, right? And then so we go into the inner sanctum, the office, and there it's dun dun dun, a dead body. Oh no! And he's holding there's like a telephone hanging on the wall, and he's holding like the telephone receiver. Is what it's called, yeah. And we look at him. He's got 3 bullets into him. We get a couple keys off him and off the desk and everything. And then we decide to open up the window and hop the fuck out. So we hop out onto the fire escape. And then we head down the fire escape a little bit and open up and go into a different room. And there's like a whole bunch of medicine on the windowsill. And there's also like, it's clearly a torture room, right? It's got like a chair with like straps on it and stuff so people can be tortured, and you got the drugs and whatnot. And there's also an elevator here. So we head down to like the basement or whatever, and then we wander around in here and we find a secret casino. Wow, secret casino, that's fun. We wander around some more, and then we end up back in the bar. So this is all like part of the bar system, like the sewer underneath it. So now that we got the key from the dead guy, we can step out into we can leave the bar. So as soon as we leave the bar, their mugger shows up. We just fucking sock him. And it was so badass. Like this guy shows up, and I was like, I don't know, punch him. And so I punch him in the face, and it's like it goes from like the scene with like the ugly mug. It just says like sock him, like in big letters, like from an old comic or like a Dick Tracy comic. And then it's like the guy's passed out in the street. And I was like, baller. That was dope. God, that was so fun. Oh man. Okay. So then we can like walk around this part of like the city, and so we find out that it's like the 1940s, that Pearl Harbor just got bombed by the Japanese here, and so it's like World War II time. And then we also find out around here that we're like in Chicago. And also while we're like looking at the newspaper reporter guy's like, hey, there was some woman who called the police over here, and she described somebody who looks just like you. And we're like, ruh-roh. So then we head back over to the bar area, and there's like a blue car in front, and so we're able to get inside there and find a note and a picture of like a really fat woman, and we're like, the fat woman looks so familiar. We have like one of those like cinematics where we're like thinking about stuff and like, and then the note talks about a woman who's probably the fat woman and how she's dead in the trunk of the car, and we're like, ruh-roh. And we also get some addresses. So we try to open the trunk, but it's locked, of course. I'll have to come back later and get the dead body out or whatever. And then we head back over to the casino that's in the bar because we were able to get some like change out of the car, and then we're able to like use one of the slot machines to win like even more coins, which coins are very important because that's how we pay for our taxi rides, right? We also picked up some like dollar bills, like $10 or whatever, in the coat earlier on, but I don't think I ever used that money for anything in this game. Yeah. Okay. I then start stumbling around in the streets, and like at some point I just died. It was like, oh, you went too far and you slipped and you're dead. And I was like, okie dokie. So, so you can die a lot in these games, obviously. And so you can die a lot in this game. So let's see. Stumble over. Okay. But the nice thing about the Game Boy Color version, which I don't know if other versions do, is that it's like, oh, you're dead now, and you get like a whole like montage about it, and then it's but don't worry about it, you can try again, and we just go back to like our previous decision. So instead of like stepping off the edge of the world, I just go the other direction. And so at that point, we're able to find the cab that I spoke about earlier. And so then we can we can talk to the cabbie, use addresses. It always costs like 50 cents, and this is why, which is like 2 coins, because each coin is like 25 cents. So that's why we need to keep like chit-chatting with all these guys so that we can so we need to collect coins, and we need to gamble so that we can get all these coins and whatnot. Okay. Section to find a cab. So the first area we go to is this bungalow, and it's locked, and we don't have a key for it. So we use our 38 and just blast the fucking door open. I was like, what do we do here? It's like, shoot the lock. All right, done. Excellent. No one cares. All right, so we enter, and then I didn't mention this before, but when we went into the secretary's office earlier, before we found the dead guy, who's most likely Joe, he there was a whole bunch of like perfume permeating throughout the air, and so we walk into this bungalow and we get the exact same perfume. So this is probably the secretary's like home and whatnot. So we found like a pearl necklace here, which is like, this bungalow is like cheap as shit, and there's no way the person could actually like afford a pearl necklace who lives here, and so that's sus. And so we think about that for a little bit, and then we get some more notes and some with numbers on them and stuff, and we get some keys, and we find a diary, and the diary has a bookmark in it, and the bookmark says JS, right? So we're getting more and more connections everywhere we go. The diary also mentions the fat chick. Her name's like Mrs. Salanders or something, and it mentions how she was it mentions how like the secretary is talking about how she was boning. It seems like she was boning JS or Joe, but also boning like the husband of this like woman, and that somehow like the dead woman in the trunk is like related to like the situation, or like there was like blackmail or something. And it's like, oh, interesting. So then we go back to the cab and we head off to this office building. There we find a doctor's office with which is the doctor who wrote like the bill for all the medication, and we go in there. And we completely raid the place. There's like tons of medication, and we just jack it all. And then we blast open the cabinet with all the files in it with our gun, of course. So like the fuck. So we blast the shit out of that, and then we steal the files, and we find another note that talks about Ace Harding, and Ace Harding is it's us, right? And a note about this. There's a note about Ace Harding and something, doing something, getting him to do something. And then there's the note about the secretary buying all the medication. Her name's like Martha Vickers or something. And then there's a note that describes like what all the medication does, which is important because we gotta keep using medication on various aspects to continue the story along. And so we find out that one of the medications, if we use it, it'll cure like lost memories or whatever. So we take the medication as much as we can until we run out of it. And then we get some like fun little flashbacks in our life. We get like remember Padre Jose or whatever? He was so kind, and like he helped me out when I was like a runt and I was like a troubled teen or whatever. And then we take it again. It's like, oh, our dog Skippy, he was such a good dog. And then like, no, he bit me and sent me to the hospital. Fuck that dog. And then it's like third time, it's like, oh, Susie Q, our girlfriend, she was such a beautiful gal, and like if only I'd stayed back in like Riverton, Illinois or whatever, and like married her, that things would have been totally different. And then finally it's like, we're like, our memories are all coming back now. And then we remember that we're Ace Harding. Yeah, I think that's the name. And that we were in Private Eye and yada yada, and we were a boxer at one point, and that's why we can just like socko people so well, which is all fun stuff. After we were the medical tent, in the medical office, we head upstairs to Ace Harding's office. Hey, that's us. We're Ace Harding. Awesome. So before we can get into our office, it has one of those like typical noir PI kind of windows before the door, and we see some jabroni like moving around in there. We're like, aha, it's a hitman, I guess. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We shoot him through the window. So hopefully get him. So we open it up. Inside we find some files about a debt and a kidnapping of a woman and stuff, and we're like, we didn't do any of this shit. This is a plant. They're trying to frame me for something, and that hitman guy, or the guy who's trying to frame us, is totally dead, so we can't get information from him. We then find some notes about another person and how we were involved with some goon or whatever, and how we got some broad. It's another broad, and how we got her put in jail. We find some more ammo for shooting locks and killing dudes, and then we head back to the office. Head back to the bar. Back at the bar upstairs in the office, we can use one of the notes that we found in the bungalow to open the safe on the wall. So in there we find a note that mentions that we owe Joe like $1,000, right? And that there's also a key in there. So we head down to the car in the front, and we can use this key to finally open the trunk and find Fat Lady. Dun dun dun. She's alive, but unconscious. So we leave the trunk open, and then take the gag out of her mouth so that she can like breathe and not die. And then we give her some sodium pentothal, which is like quote unquote truth serum. I mean, it's not, but when it comes to like nowhere and Mission Impossible and shit, that's what it's used for. So she tells us her home address and then passes the fuck back out. Cool, sounds good. We're just gonna leave her there. She'll be okay. We'll come back and get her later or something. We head over to her place. She lives in like a giant mansion. We open up the mailbox and committing more federal crimes in the process. And inside, we find a letter threatening blackmail from like us, presumably. We take it. We then knock on the front door to get inside, and the butler opens, and he's like, get the fuck out of here. No one is anything. And so we just punch the shit out of him, knocking him out. And then we just wander upstairs. And hey, we finally find Martha Vickers, the secretary lady. Hey, she's here sleeping, right? So we truth serum her. She admits to being the one who killed Joe Siegel. We also find a timetable for like the kidnapping of the fat lady, for framing us, for killing Joe, all that stuff. Putting us in the bathroom, setting the whole thing up. And then, so we take all that, then we head to the next room, and we find Fat Lady's husband, who he talks about helping the secretary with, like, setting this whole thing up, cheating on his wife. And then we find more evidence of their crime. And so after reading through all this stuff and gathering it, the TLDR is that Joe was banging his secretary, Martha, and then Martha met Rich Guy and started banging him. So then she was like cheating on, and then he's having an affair with Fat Lady. And Fat Lady apparently is like the woman behind the actual wealth of the organization here, the couple. And so then Joe got super jealous, and he threatened to like reveal to Fat Lady that her husband was cheating with the secretary to get her back. And then she sent a letter saying like, you can't control me and all this stuff. And so Martha and Fat Lady's husband, it's like Mr. Steinbeck or something, they like organized a situation where they were going to they kidnap the wife, put her in the trunk in a situation where she'll like, they didn't kill her, but she'll suffocate at some point, I guess. We saved her, so that's good. They didn't kill Joe, and then they set us up to be the one who like did all the bad stuff. So not a bad little setup they got going here. Too bad we got him. So before we can go to the police and turn in all this evidence and like make ourselves innocent, which I don't know, it kept being like, oh, I can prove my innocence, and I was like, we haven't done anything, and there's no proof that we did anything because we have all the proof that we did anything. Anyway, but we need to take all that evidence that makes us look guilty, and we need to get rid of it. So we head into the sewers. We find a little like area down there to throw all this stuff into, and it's like, all right, good. Now we can go to the police with only the stuff that makes them look guilty. Cool, excellent. On my way out of the sewers, on my way to the sewers, I get jumped by another mugger. I try punching this guy, but then he punches me faster. And it's like, oh, I'm an old man, yada, yada. And then we get harassed by like a homeless guy. These are like random events. I got like 3 of them back to back to back. It's like, wow. So then the homeless guy wants money. So I throw him some change because I don't need it anymore. And then we run into, I presume it's Martha Vickers. It's some lady with a gun who's like threatening us. And she's like, I found you. I'm going to get you and you're going to be in trouble. And so we punch her out, which is awesome. And then we walk into the police station and we clear our name, and with all the evidence we gathered, it leads to the arrest and the conviction of the husband and the secretary. And then we become famous overnight all throughout the country because this case is like super interesting, I guess. And a bit later, this is like the end of Deja Vu. And so then we get like the interlog, I guess, or the intermission, where we get like some text that's like, okay, so we're super excited, we're getting some more cases, everything's going to be great. And then we're just chilling in our house, and then we just get like knocked out by some goons and dragged into a car, and then we wake up and we're in another bathroom. This time though, no one drugged us, so we know who we are. We're not like, oh, who the fuck am I, what's going on here, and all that bullshit, right? And we find out that we recall the knocking out, and that we were driven to Las Vegas from Chicago to meet with Malone, who's a mafioso who was like involved. Joe was like working for him, doing schemes and stuff. But now that Joe's dead, it looks like we killed him, I guess, even though we proved our innocence. I don't know. We were like involved with Joe on some level. So this Malone guy wants us to recover like the 12 grand, which doesn't seem like a lot, but in like 1940s money is probably a lot of money. So he wants us to get the money, or quote unquote else. Right. And then he sticks his number one hitman on us, this Stogie guy. And it's like, all right, cool, sounds good. So we take all our stuff from the bathroom, and this is all like recalled in our head. So we take all our stuff in the bathroom, and then we head out into this like hotel looking room, and Stogie's in there and he threatens us, and then he drops a cigar ring, which is super important to get. You can get one more of these later too, but this is like, you have to have it to like it and to beat the game. And then he leaves. So we pick it up, we pick up some more stuff. We leave here, and we see that this room we're in is actually like a big casino in Vegas, so that's fun. So we head in, trade like the $10 we had in our pocket for some chips, and we go to play blackjack. And hey, it's our old pal. Oh my gosh, hold on. Oh, jeez. Okay, so it's our old friend Rudy from our boxing days. He's an old boxer too, so we chit-chat a little bit, and he's like, he gives us a wink and is like, you want to play some blackjack? And so we do, and he allows us to like beat him a bunch of times so we can get a bunch of chips, and then we can trade that in for money. You can apparently get like $1,000 or something. I only got like, how much did I get? I only got like $50. You really don't need that much. You need money for like train rides, but you really just got to take a train from here to Chicago, which is $20, and then back, which is like $20. I think that's all you need money for. And you can find like $20 just lying around once you get to Chicago as well. But anyway, if you want to play a bunch of blackjack, here it is. So there we meet some guy who's willing to like sell us like stuff we might run out of, like bullets. What was the other thing he was selling? Like disposable stuff that you can use and like run out of. I can't remember what the other thing was. There was two things he was selling. But we gotta spend money on that, so we can go gambling to do that, I guess. So then we catch a train to Chicago. We fall asleep, and when we arrive in Chicago, we buy a newspaper from some blind guy at a station, and we see that there was a gangster here that was killed, and we get the address for the morgue. We then head out and jump in the first cab we see, and hey, it's Gabby. Who's Gabby? He's our old pal. He loves us. We like helped him out on a bunch of stuff, and like we're super friends. So he's willing to like do all sorts of like nice things for us, like not charge us like 25 cents for like, or what was it, 75 cents for like a cab ride. So we can like take the cab ad nauseum, which is important because we got to spend so much money on these stupid plane tickets, train tickets, which to be fair, like if I could spend $20 on a train from Vegas to Chicago, I'd be living like the dream, man. I do that like every week. Anyway, so first place we go is we head back to our place. We walk in, find out the whole place is like messed up. Stogie's clearly been in here, probably looking for the money or whatnot. And then we're like, okay, we grab some stuff, and we're like, all right, what's the next location we need to go to here? And we figure like, hey, let's go to Joe's Bar. So we head over there. It's all locked up, so we head up the fire escape. And this is the part I was telling you about, where it's like we find a penknife in our place, and it's like, all right, penknife, got it. And then we try to get to Joe's Bar, but it's all locked up. So I go to the fire escape, and there's like boards, and you look at the boards, and it's like, there's a loose board here, and it's like, cool, use a knife on this, and it's like, no. And I was like, okay, and I mess around a little bit. And I look at the guide, and it's like, use the penknife. And I'm like, I did use a fucking penknife. So it's like, I open and close the penknife, used it, nothing. Finally, Gemini's like, punch it. It's not even like punch it. It's like, there's many times that these like things can be confusing, blah, blah, blah. Have you tried punching it? And I was like, what the fuck? So I punched it, and it broke open. Excellent. So we get in there, and we find that we open up the telephone that, like, Joe's gone. So we open a telephone, and then there we find a key. So then we head back down the fire escape. Now we go to the alleyway, and now we can use the penknife to, to lockpick the back door to get into kind of the first floor of the bar. And then we do that, and then if we want to go any further in, we have to use the flashlight that we found earlier. So we use the flashlight. Oh, no. As soon as we get in the door, to go any further in, to get to like the bar area or anywhere else, the casino, we have to use the flashlight. And this thing like runs out. Oh, batteries. That's what that dude sells. Yeah, so you can get batteries from him if you like run out of batteries. Because if you're not out of batteries in like this one part of the game that you use the flashlight, you will die. So that happened a lot because this is another part where I was like, the whole bar is like very janky in accordance to like all the guides I read. I'd have like Gemini like kind of hash stuff out with me in my brain to kind of figure out what was going on with all that. So that was not fun. Let's see. So we picked the lock. Yep, flashlight. Okay, we find a secret passage in the wine cellar that leads to the casino, and that's where we have to find like the one piece of like bottle, and then we have to like smash it, and then like, okay, you got it. High five. So once we get in there, we can open up one of the slot machines, or we use a key that we got from the telephone to open one of the slot machines, and in there we get a card with a new address, and this address is for Sugar's place, and we reminisce about the prostitute Sugar and how much fun we had like banging the shit out of her, I guess, and how she was kind of crazy at some point and tried to kill us. So maybe Sugar was the lady from Deja Vu 1 who was going to shoot us. I don't know. I didn't really like spend too much time on that, but now I'm like, oh, maybe it wasn't Martha Vickers. Maybe she was asleep the whole time, and that was the crazy Sugar whore who, like, I don't know, she wanted to kill us after we like boinked her a little bit. I don't know. And the game doesn't want to tell me, so whatever. All right. I'm going to kill us at one point. Yep. We also find a diary and a bunch of parchment, a bunch of payments in Joe Siegel's handwriting. So we saunter on over to Sugar's place with Gabby, our cab friend. We find a cop's uniform in there and a letter from a cop who was like a bagman for the police captain. So the police captain was working with Joe and this Malone guy from Vegas to like take bribes and like allow shady stuff to happen. And then this other police guy who was like banging Sugar, who left his like diary here, was somehow involved. He was like the guy who was actually doing the work while the captain just like received the money or whatever. And so, okay, that's good to know. And so the important thing is that we pick up a police uniform because we need that police uniform to go get into the morgue and not be questioned. So we throw it on, we head over there, we get the tag from the body of the mafioso guy that died so we can get all his stuff. And then when we get his stuff, we find a bunch of money, a key, like another key, and a baggage claim ticket, which we can use back in Vegas. So now it's time to head back to Vegas via the train. On the way, we run into Stogie again, who threatens us again because he's an asshole. So over in Vegas, we use the ticket to get a suitcase, which has a photo of Joe and some guys. And one of the guys is DV. Who's DV? I don't know. We'll find out in a minute. And then we find out some other missing information as well. So we need to figure out who this DV guy is, because DV was working with Joe to like overthrow Malone's like criminal empires, doing some shady stuff, making a power play on Malone's territory. So then we head over to the casino and we head up to the third floor where there's an open laundry basket. Yep, this is some real point and click fucking adventure logic here. Why would I do this? And then there's an open laundry like basket or container, and so you can like climb in there, right? And to be fair, if you just like wander around in the fucking desert, you can like stumble upon like a laundry building, and there's no way to get inside. Okay, so then you're like, okay, well, how am I going to get inside? Okay, so if I stumble my way back over the casino, and to be fair, the desert's huge. Like the map, you can get lost out there and die. But if you like certain areas, it'll be like, hey, there's tire tracks here, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. So you take the tire, if you do the tire track business, it'll take you to the cleaners and then back to the casino. So then we head back to the casino. Once you see that, and so you get in the laundry, and then you pull the lid closed, and then you hear some goons talking about stuff, and then you get picked up and you get taken, and then they pull you out and they punch you, and then they tie you up in the basement of like the cleaners, and it's like, all right. So then we use like a broken crate nearby to like break our bonds, and then we hear these guys talking about DV. They work for DV, all this stuff, how they're going to take over Malone's operation and whatnot. Let's see. Okay, so then what we got to do is we go upstairs, and then we open the front door, and then we head back downstairs, and we like climb back in the laundry, and then the guys will come down to like beat us up some more or something. And then we're not there. They're like, oh no, we could look in that laundry basket that's sitting right there, but we're not going to do it. We're going to run around and be like, oh no, the front door is open, and he must have escaped. And so that allows us to go back upstairs and leave the place, but also we can go into an office that's up there. Let's see, break out like the letter from the dead guy. So, okay, and so we eventually find that this DV guy is like Devontae or something, or Dylan. Anyway, he's DV. but he's the right-hand man of Malone. He's like second in charge of the whole game. And then in his like office that we went into, we also find there's like a dartboard with like clearly a secret door we can't get into yet. But then there's a button. Ooh, a button, like a magnet button. What is this going to be used for? So we head back through the desert to the casino, and then we go into the elevator because the elevator goes up to 3 floors, but there's an empty spot there that could have more stuff. And so we put the magnet button on top of like where the 4th floor button would be, and yep, it takes us to the 4th floor. Excellent. Let's see. So we head to the top floor. Yep. And then there's Malone's office and DV's office. So we go to DV's office, and we find this like what do you call it? Like a paperweight, and it's got like a dart on top. So we take the dart off because we can take the dart back to the secret office back at the cleaners. And then we also find a key, and then we have a moment of insight about everything, about who's taking the money, about what's going on with this. So then we take the dart and the key, we head back to the laundry place. This time to get in, because now it's locked up again, we have to use the key we got from DV's office on the back door of the cleaner, which gets us down into the basement. We go back up into the office, we use the dart on the dartboard, which opens up that back office. Yep. And then in there, it's all the stuff they took away from us when they pulled us out of the laundry and like beat us up. And that stuff's important because that's the stuff you need to frame DV. Well, not even frame, like to get DV and Malone to fight each other, right? Which is the goal of this whole thing. And so, okay, let's see. We get our stuff back. Okay, so one of the things we want to do is we want to drop stogies, because stogie, stogie is like a term for a cigar. But Stogie smokes these cigars, and he has a very specific brand that like nobody likes because it's disgusting or something. This comes up earlier in the game, so it's actually well kind of established if you're paying attention that like, okay, this is an important thing. And so you can put one of the cigar rings that you got from one of the times he drops it, and you can put it on the desk after you take all the stuff out of it. And that's going to tell Devontae or whatever his name is, DV, that like, oh hey, Stogie was here looking around, and like so the jig is up, so he's got to do something about it. It's to put some fear of God in him, right? And so at that point, we then head back to the casino and we go to Malone's office so that we can drop off all the evidence, which is like letter 1, letter 3, diary. I think I even put the picture in there, but I don't think you need to, from what the guide was. So like, when I watched like the YouTube video that I mentioned, which I had to do right around here. So this is the part where I was like, okay, cool. So then I was like, time to escape. So I run out to the desert. Stogie find me, kills me. I'm like, okay, let's go to Chicago. Go to Chicago. He finds me, kills me. I'm like, okay, let's go somewhere else. So we go to Los Angeles, and he finds me and kills me. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go play blackjack. And then he finds me and kills me. And I'm like, okay, fuck you, game. And so, like, what am I doing wrong here? Because, like, when I looked up these guides, they're just like, okay, drop like those 3 things, make sure that the cigar ring, and then you're good to go. You can just like go wander around, and eventually the game will end. And it did not. And I was like, fuck you. So then I watched the YouTube video and saw that there's a picture in Malone's office of him and DV that you got to look at, and then you get like the insight cinematic where it's like, oh, it's like he raised him like a son and all this stuff, and that allows the game to permit you to run away, right? Because then what it does is it triggers the ending. So what's the ending? The ending is that you flee and you fall asleep on the train, and then meanwhile we get a shot of Malone, and Malone like comes back to his office and like finds all the paperwork he just like left in there, and he's like, the fuck is this? And it's all the evidence that DV is the one who's stealing from him, that he's backtracking. He's like, man, burn that fucking cleaner down and kill him. And so your goons go, and the Malone's goons go, and they burn it down and kill DV. Meanwhile, at the exact same time that's going on, DV gets back to his office in the cleaner, and he's like, oh fuck, Stogie was here. I can't let Malone get me, so I'm gonna send my goons over there, and they're gonna shoot up the place. So they go shoot up the place and then kill Malone, right? So they're both dead. And then after we get like our trip to, I think I ended up, or the video I was watching ended up going to like Los Angeles. So then it's like, oh, eventually you headed back to Chicago. You saw in the news that Malone and DV both killed each other in like this crazy gang war they were having in like Las Vegas. And you're like, all right, cool, cut and clear. I don't have to find this money. I don't have to do shit all because they took care of it for me. High fives all around. And it's like, awesome. And yep, that's it. That's the end of Deja Vu. And those games are pretty good, except for that last little part, which if there was like a guide that had said like, look at the pictures, that would have been much better. So it was actually, I was using a guide on like Nova Seeker. No, what is it called? Neo Seeker. Whatever that site is. And that was the only guide I could find that was for the Game Boy Color version of these games. And it was great. It told me, it's like, hey, make sure you look at this, make sure you do that. Because clearly in other versions, you don't have to like fuck around as much. But in this one, they want you to fuck around a lot more. It seems, because then I found 3 other guides for Deja Vu 2, but I don't think any of them were for the Game Boy Color version, and that was causing problems because multiple times it was like it would tell me to do something and it would like that would not work, and I'm like, okay. And then Gemini, and again, these AIs are just advanced like search algorithms, but it at some point it was like, oh, the punching thing was like added to the Game Boy Color version, and I didn't like look it up to make sure, but I'm like, okay, maybe that would make sense because it just seems like unnecessary. Like you could just use against people, or like I don't know. There's other ways you could have handled some of those situations, so I don't really know. But there you go. So yeah, but it was pretty great. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Shadowgate. I mean, the story was interesting, and the twists and turns and everything were like, oh, that's pretty good, right? For like an old Nintendo era game, or even earlier for this one. So yeah, go ahead. I mean, I recommend it. It's pretty fun. Go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later. Bye.